Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Harry and Jen Do Horror with Friends. This week, we're analyzing and critiquing Longlegs from 2024, directed by Oz Perkins and starring Nicolas Cage and Maika Monroe. Jen and I unpacked this little ball of craziness with her partner, Teagan, and we had so much fun doing it. You should know, though, that on this podcast, we spoil the hell out of our movies. So if you haven't seen this one yet, be sure to check it out first and then come back to us. As always, if you have a minute, we welcome ratings and reviews on your podcast streaming services. However, the best is when people actually share these episodes with their horror enthusiast buds. So if that is you, if you have buds who like the scary movies, we would be eternally grateful if you would share our little endeavor here. Next month, we will discuss Oddity, directed by Damian McCarthy. It was a big deal at the film festivals. Jen and I are going to see what's up with that one, and you can look for that episode dropping November 12th. For now, here's Teagan to discuss Longlegs.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when people hornily stab dolls, it doesn't do much for me.
It doesn't do a lot. That's not your kink?
No.
Jen kink shaming.
My name is Harry Nichols. I am a singer-songwriter. I'm an English teacher. I am a dad of two small kids. And what am I going to rant about today? I want to rant about camping today. I've just set up a campsite. I'm coming to you from setting up a campsite with my family, and I'm just in this mode right now where I'm like, why am I doing so much work to sleep outside?
It's a bad idea.
It doesn't seem sensible.
What kind of work are you doing?
Setting up a tent,
Okay.
Bending over,
Kneeling.
hammering stakes into the ground, fighting rocks that are in the ground,
It's too much work.
relearning how to set up my tent, like for the 9th time, because I only do it once a year. I'm not for it. I'm an indoor kid. I've always been an indoor kid.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same way. Mm-hmm. I will follow that up.
Go ahead.
Well, first, I'm Jen Lightfoot. I'm an artist and tattoo artist, and I do not like the outdoors and therefore will not camp. But one time, went camping, and we had a tent, but no sleeping bags, no pillows, no blankets. And basically, we're just sleeping on the cold, hard ground in a tent.
Wow.
I also was really cold and ate 2 cheeseburgers within a 15-minute span and got sick and fell asleep early. I like that I left everyone speechless.
Silence. So I have a follow-up question to that. So
They were like the little cheeseburgers from like a...
Oh, no, I'm fine on the cheeseburgers.
They were not little, just to be clear.
I know how that happens. Okay, I'm a cheeseburger guy myself. Okay. What I'm curious about is why didn't you bring a sleeping bag?
Okay, that's a great question.
Well,
or a pillow?
we borrowed the tent from someone, and then I guess we forgot that we would need pillows. None of us owned sleeping bags. None of this is a good excuse, but
It
So
was
it's
a
like
drive-in. We were sleeping out at a drive-in,
Okay.
and so I think the focus was on the movie, maybe,
Yeah.
and we were not thinking. And it was very cold.
it was very uncomfortable.
It was very cold.
And it turns out you need pillows.
Yeah, we were balling up sweatshirts for pillows. Yeah,
Wow.
fail, camping fail.
Good story. How long ago was this? Like last weekend?
No, like 2 years.
No,
3
pre-COVID.
years? Oh, I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right, introduce yourself.
You're up.
Well, I'm Teagan Bradway. I'm an associate professor of English at SUNY Cortland, and I am a longtime listener of the podcast. And I'm also Jen Lightfoot's partner.
Ah.
Oh yeah, we always ask partners this kind of thing.
Yep.
Harry, how do you word it? Like, how do you summarize our relationship? Is that it?
Yeah, you get. I'm going to give you a new challenge. 3 words to summarize your relationship.
Oh God!
Yep. 3 words.
Choose well.
Vexed? No.
Damn. All right.
No.
You're off the show.
No. I don't know. Fun. Overwrought. and yeah, I don't know. Thoughtful.
Oh,
Yeah, that's nice.
That is
That's very nice. Can I actually ask a separate question on the vein of the Friends aspect of Harry and Jen do horror with friends? How did you both meet?
Ooh.
We met in 2011 on OkCupid, and Teagan hates this aspect of the story, but my mom had left some booze at my apartment, and I made some hot chocolate, filled it with booze, and I messaged like a lot of people on OkCupid.
She always underscores a lot. A lot of.
That's just like a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, like I think it was like 25.
Jesus, I don't think I knew that.
And like
What?
something around there.
I thought a lot was like 6.
And they all got the same message except one sentence was changed. And so for Teagan's, I saw you liked horror movies. Have you ever seen Hard Rock Zombies?
Oh, nice.
And then she wrote back saying, no, have you seen Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter?
Have you seen it?
I
Harry?
haven't, no.
It's a musical.
That sounds wonderful.
It's great.
That sounds wonderful.
And yeah, I mean, I remember, well, so I had an extremely extensive profile with like sections and lengthy analyses of Lost. The ending of Lost was, I got a lot of messages about that. But Jen had like...
Okay, so Harry needs to know because Harry hates the ending of
Oh,
Lost.
you hate the ending of Lost?
I do.
I fucking hate it so... We can curse on this, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I fucking hate the ending of Lost. And I'm still
That was
upset
like
about
your
it. And it
whole-
ruined television for me in many respects.
But that was like your whole profile.
Not to overstate it.
Yeah, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but and I mean, yeah, I'm not actually being hyperbolic in the sense that there are times now where Jen's like, "Oh, let's watch this unfolding serial show filled with mysteries," and
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the point?
Right,
like, it's all
right,
going to
right.
result in some sort of Unitarian church
Yeah.
ending. That's going to anyway.
Where everyone's been dead the whole time.
But I guess this wound was fresher back in 2011, and it was a part of
Yes.
my profile. And I remember we talked about that a lot on our first date, but we also talked a ton about horror movies. But the thing is, Jen had nothing really on her profile except for a few pictures of her and a joke about her boobs.
Well, no.
Wait a minute. What was the joke?
The prompt on OkCupid was, what's the first thing somebody notices about you? And I said my teeth and my boobs. Because I feel like I have like, I don't know, I'm self-conscious about my teeth and then my boobs.
And
That
I
was
just
it.
thought, I was like, oh, this person's going to be pretentious, like from her pictures and like, and maybe a little too cavalier for me. I don't think.
And here I am just an idiot.
No. But we talked a lot about horror, so that was a big thing right away.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man, so it's like one of the central things to like your whole relationship. That's lovely.
Yeah.
Man, awesome. Well, should we talk about Longlegs?
We gotta, yeah.
Yes!
We're gonna talk about this movie.
We gotta talk about Longlegs.
Cool. Teagan,
I have a summary.
you know what you need to do.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm an obsessive fan of the pod. And before
Have
we
you
dive in-
listened to every episode?
I've listened to every episode. I believe I was the first person to comment on iTunes, leaving a review. And before we get into the episode, I have to say that there was a rule, as far as I was told, about the podcast in which no partners would be on. Because from the very beginning, I said to Jen, like, oh my God, I want to be on the show. When do I get to be on the show? And she was like, you're never going to be on. It's never going to happen. Stop asking.
Put this away in your mind.
Yeah. And then every episode I would listen and I would like be like, well, yeah, that was really good, but you guys did not mention Jane Eyre and Barbarian, and like, how could you not?
The only
You know?
reason you wanted to say this right now was just to say that one part.
And to impress Harry. But no, the important thing is that like, so then one day Jen was like, oh, so Harry's wife is going to be on the show. And I was like, wait, what? And so anyway, this is a dream come true for me. And I'm really excited.
For us too. For us too, buddy.
So don't fuck it up.
Ooh, all right. Ooh. Okay, so Lee Harker is a young FBI agent with psychic abilities who was recruited by Agent Carter to solve a series of murder-suicides in Oregon in 1993. Over the past 30 years, families have been brutally murdered in their homes without any trace of an intruder. The only clue is a cryptogram letter left at each crime scene with the signature Longlegs. Longlegs breaks into Harker's home and leaves a cipher for the letters, but threatens to kill her mother if she reveals its source. Harker decodes the letters and realizes that each family had a 9-year-old daughter born on the 14th of the month. All of the murders take place within 6 days of the child's birthday. Harker pieces together that the dates form a triangle, with one date not yet accounted for. At the site of a previous murder, Lee and Carter discover a life-size doll with a silver orb in the brain. They question Carrie Ann Camera, the only living survivor of Longlegs, and Carter confronts Lee with the discovery that her own mother, Ruth, called the police about an intruder on her 9th birthday. Lee finds a Polaroid she took of the stranger, which leads the FBI to arrest Dale Ferdinand Cobble. Before killing himself in custody, Cobble hints at having a female accomplice who is soon revealed to be Ruth. Ruth murders Agent Browning with a shotgun and shoots a doll that looks like Lee, causing black smoke to escape from Lee's head. Lee loses consciousness, awakens in Longlegs' lair, which turns out to be the basement of her childhood home. In a voiceover, Ruth explains that she saved Lee's life from Cobble by delivering dolls to the families. Through the dolls, Satan directs the fathers to murder their wives and children. Lee races to Agent Carter's home, where his daughter Ruby has received a doll for her 9th birthday. At the party, Carter kills his wife, Anna. Lee then shoots Carter and Ruth. She tries to shoot Ruby's doll, but her gun does not fire, and the two stare at it as Longlegs sings Happy Birthday to Lee. As Longlegs blows a kiss to the audience, credits roll backwards from the top down as the soundtrack plays Get It On by T-Rex.
Awesome. Wow.
All right. Great summary.
Complete. Yeah. This movie is so interesting. I feel like this is the same thing I said about Husera, but it's so tonally hard to nail.
Well, are we doing analysis?
Yeah, let's dig in.
I feel like you guys are going to have more to say than I am, because I struggled to find themes within this movie, and I Googled Longlegs themes. And someone wrote something on Reddit, and I was like, no, I don't agree with that.
Bullshit.
I was like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. So as we were sitting here, I glanced down at my notes, and this is a stretch, but the mom says, our prayers protect us from the devil. So is it like, could a theme be protection? So like the mother is protecting Lee Harker from Longlegs and the devil. I was trying to find other protection things in there, and I'm struggling, but whatever you got. Oh, well, Lee is an FBI agent, so she, wants to protect people.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Tell me what you got, what you all think.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think that, so Oz Perkins, who is the writer-director, basically is on record saying that for a lot of the broad framework of this movie, he was, and I'm quoting here, ripping off The Silence of the Lambs. Yeah. And, that movie The Silence of the Lambs is about someone who is trying to be a protector, right? It's very much about, masculine violence against women, and how Clarice is kind of trying to get in there and stop Buffalo Bill, who's maybe the most extreme example of that, although we're given many, many other examples all along a spectrum of extremity, right? So I think, it makes sense to me that protection is in there too, in this movie, which is also about a young FBI agent who is cutting her teeth against a killer. Yeah, I mean, Teagan, what do you think about that?
Well, I will say, yeah, the first or the most important theme that I wrote down was like mothers lying to protect their children.
Totally.
Ooh,
So I
but I
totally
like
agree.
mothers lying.
And I will say, I mean, this, I'm not going to get into critiquing this, but I will say it's often a genre, like a plot structure that I have trouble with, which is to say a reveal that suggests the parents were doing something to protect you all along. So like another movie that does this is A Quiet Place, in which the child sort of ultimately realizes like, oh my gosh, all these things that my father was doing that I thought were terrible were actually to protect me, and
Right.
therefore daddy is good.
Right.
I think this movie might have a more complicated and ambivalent relationship to parental protection. But I mean, first we have the mother gaslighting her and saying no one ever came. We're literally seeing her condition her child's memory.
Right.
She says, I'm doing this for you just like I've always done, so the little girl named Lee would be allowed to grow up, and that makes it right. Which is interesting to me, like, in terms of a mother's perspective about morality, that, like, what is acceptable or ethical is conditioned by what protects your own child.
Sure.
And I guess that's, I mean, even something as little as the line about, I think it's Ruby who says like, she wants to be an actress, but child actors grow up to be fucked up or
Right.
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
What's interesting is Oz Perkins was a child actor.
Really?
His own daughter is in the film.
Wait, who's his daughter?
His daughter is the girl at the register in the hardware store, and the daughter is calling for dad, who is literally him.
Right.
And so there is something going on there. I know I have read Oz Perkins talk about, and I have ambivalence about this, but about his own mother lying to him as a child about his father, Anthony Perkins, of course, from Psycho, being gay. And like Anthony Perkins never really came out. He died of AIDS. And for the duration of his childhood, his mother's lying to them about that.
Right.
And so, you know, these kind of lies that are intended to protect you, but then end up producing more harm in the process seem definitely like a theme.
Yeah, I agree. And Jen, just to reaffirm that and to say that in a different way, the first thing I wrote down under major topics was family secrets / we don't talk about Bruno.
Oh my god!
Because that's the world I occupy.
Remake of,
Oh my god.
Nice. Teagan, what do you think? What calls to you about this movie?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was so glad you brought up Silence of the Lambs, because I think in some ways, it's really interesting. It's set in 1993.
Right.
When did Silence of the Lambs come out?
It was 91.
91. I think Oz Perkins. When does Anthony Perkins die? I think 92.
I don't know. Actually.
Early 90s.
I think he was going to set it in the year that his father died, 92, but then he chose to set it in 93, like with Bill Clinton on that thing, which is interesting. But in any case, like Silence of the Lambs 7, like the first thing I thought of when I saw the trailer for this was like, oh, right, like we're bringing back the psychological thriller where you've got a kind of serial killer and we have a profiler on the hunt. And anyway, it's sort of interesting how it was marketed as a way to sort of be like, this is the new Silence of the Lambs. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about that in terms of critique, but it did feel like heavy pastiche and homage of lots of things. In in 7, you get the reveal of Kevin Spacey like 2/3 of the movie in, and we get Nicolas Cage revealed really early. You know, so I kept thinking a lot about
I mean, the mother
those
is
references.
revealed, like, I want to say 20 minutes before the ending.
That she is
25.
the killer.
Yeah, that she
it's
is the
really late in
accomplice.
the movie, yeah.
So but it's not like, but there's more that happens after that. You know what I mean? So it's like, that doesn't feel like a ending reveal to me.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, maybe I'm bouncing around, but just this idea of like protecting kids so that they grow up, to what end? Like, so Lee seems emotionally stunted or awkward or
Definitely.
And on the one hand, I was really excited by her character as a kind of representation perhaps of like neurodiversity, or is she on the spectrum, is she autistic in some ways? And I really love when she enters the kid's bedroom, or he's like, come and meet my family. She's like, do I have to?
Yeah.
You know, and this kind of sense of like not social graces and literal. But then on the other hand, if her mother has essentially served Satan so that she can grow up and have an adulthood, like, what kind of an adulthood is it? And like, it's essentially required the repression of her memory and effectively all of her emotions. So I don't know. It made me wonder, like, what's so what?
And what you mentioned about the adulthood of like her mom is doing the killing to basically keep Lee safe. So once her mom, okay, whatever, ignoring the movie, ignoring the fact that her mother dies in the movie, let's say her mother grows old and she keeps doing this, but then she dies, what the fuck happens to Lee?
Yeah, I had a lot of questions about that at the end.
Yeah,
I was
and maybe
hoping
that
you guys
ends
could
up
answer that
more
for me.
into critique. But the other thing was that when you said that quote, when her mom says something like, I allowed you to grow up.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
control is another thing
Yeah.
too.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
Because I guess Longlegs is controlling. Whatever. There's so many questions I have, but Longlegs does some witchcraft shit and Satanism and puts the balls in the dolls' heads, which controls the families.
Right.
To kill, whatever. I'm shortening that.
I mean, obviously.
But that's a level of control.
Also, Satan really loves numerology.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to be clear.
And dolls.
Right. And calendars. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. No, but just thinking of different levels of control. I mean, the FBI has a certain way of doing things, right? So that would be a level of controlling the way certain things are done. I don't know. Maybe that's a stretch.
Is she constrained by the procedural? I mean, Carter is very. I mean, it's interesting because he seems to give her the case because there is this suggestion that she has some kind of psychic powers.
Right.
Yeah.
But he also at the same time really doesn't seem to believe in them. And even near the end, after Longlegs kills himself on that interrogation table, he's very he did it. It wasn't magic powers. It was, just a fucking dude killing people. You know what I mean? So he's very
you're
strongly
right.
refutes this idea.
Right.
Which feels like a constraint to me too on Lee Harker, who's just trying to.
Yeah.
At that point too, she's really focused on the accomplice, being if great, whatever, we have him, but if we don't get the accomplice, more families are going to keep dying. So I don't know, wouldn't you also want to catch that accomplice?
Yeah.
Not just have him. But
Well, I'm glad you brought up Carter's kind of role because he, especially as you're saying, near the end, his role is to remind the audience that nothing supernatural is going on, or he's asserting it, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he's reminding the audience.
Or,
I mean, the
he's
audience knows that.
That's exactly. Or, I mean, he's trying to. I feel like the plot is trying to convince us. Could it be or isn't it? Basically. Right. Because the classic Silence of the Lambs, even 7, they hint at grotesque things, but and they maybe hint at supernatural or often religious explanations.
Yes.
But it always ends up being real.
Right.
It's not actually a supernatural element.
do you think this movie, things were not supernatural?
Oh no, I
Okay.
definitely.
I'm just checking.
No, I think that they are, but I felt like the movie was trying to convince me to be uncertain for the purposes of suspense.
Yeah.
But part of the thing I really felt like they were trying to do that. But from the very jump, it seems unquestioned that she has psychic powers. I was like, the FBI just does the Voight-Kampff test and
right.
And everybody accepts psychic abilities,
right.
and so I was willing to accept that. I was like, I guess something taps her on the shoulder and she knows where to look.
Yeah.
And so when he's saying it's not voodoo, he's just a guy, I was like, well, we have a lot of evidence.
But isn't it a little bit voodoo?
But I felt like that was the constraint of the genre that they were kind of trying to mess with a little bit.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. And something I hadn't really thought that much about is just how I'm not sure to what extent this movie is actually trying to operate in reality or not. But it is interesting that there is this tension between the supernatural and the real, and and it's a plot point. I mean, maybe it's just kind of a squeaky plot point. I don't know. We could talk about that in critique later. But
I like squeaky plot points.
Squeaky plot points. Yeah,
you should write a book called Squeaky Plot Points.
Squeaky plot points. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, can you actually? This is a question that doesn't necessarily lead to critique, but is there a suggestion that Lee's mom is do you still say your prayers? And
Yeah.
she repeats this a few times.
Yeah.
And then when Lee's like, no, she laughs and is like, yeah, prayers don't do anything.
Yeah.
What religion are they? And is the implication that, on the one hand, it seems to be the implication is that they are fundamentalist Christians
Yeah.
who are kind of isolated from the world. Her mother doesn't like nice things. Of course, this is all setting up the ironic reversal that her mother is doing the wicked things. Right. But it seems like Longlegs only delivers the gifts to church-going families.
Church-going families, yeah.
On the other hand, I was like, wait, is there a suggestion that the mother is a Satanist or whatever? I mean, like, the garb that she's wearing is sort of evoking a nun's habit, but not quite. At one point, she's posing like the Virgin Mary, but not quite. And so anyway, I was wondering about that. If we are meant to think, oh, she... Why wouldn't she think prayers do anything, I guess? Because she's seen the darkness and...
I think that we see the scene of her in the car, like we assume like maybe one of the first times that she's done it, and like she's like crying and she has her hands on her face. And then we see her later, and it's much more like jaded.
Yeah. She even smiles near the end.
Oh, and the scene with the birthday party and her at the end, like I do think that like over how many years, like how old do we know how old Lee Harker is? Probably in her 20s, I'm guessing.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a long fucking time. And I feel like over that time, she has leaned into Satanism or the darkness, or, you know, because of all the murders that she's seen and done. And, you know, when you're like, I feel like maybe brainwashed in a way, like by Longlegs. So, yeah.
Ooh, I'm curious about that.
That scene where she laughs about it, though, to come back to that, I hear what you're saying, Jen, and I agree with it, because I had read that just as, you know, having watched it a couple times now, in that moment, you know, I read everything she says as very dishonest in that scene. She says that she doesn't remember the intruder. She says she doesn't remember the birthday. Like, it's bullshit. She obviously does, and she's just lying through her teeth. And I don't know. Yeah, I think she realizes that she's kind of at the... You also have to realize that she's at the end of the triangle now, right? Like, she's done almost all the murders that it takes to do whatever they're trying to do.
Okay, what happens
I don't know.
afterwards?
Is it just like a tribute to Satan? I don't know.
Well, it sounds like it might save your soul from twisting and burning and twisting and burning.
Right.
But one might ask, what's the alternative?
But I can imagine, you know, snapping a little bit at the end of that, and she laughs for an uncomfortable amount of time.
She does.
It just feels very weary to me, and her whole affect is very like, she almost seems like a little drugged or something.
Yeah,
she's like tired.
Yes. Well, and we see her drugs when Lee goes down to the sink, and I was like, that was something I was like, okay, what's the implication of that?
Right.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, Mom. Like,
she says she kept everything. Like, on the one hand, she's gaslighting her, but on the other hand, she's like, hey, go to your room. You might find some treats.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? She fucking knows. Like,
I also like she kept everything, including Longlegs, in the basement. Like, she didn't even throw him out.
Which I was thinking, I was like, they keep saying the downstairs man. I was like, it's not only Satan, it's Longlegs.
Right.
Yes. He lives
the man downstairs.
And we are going to have to talk about whether we like that or not. But I will just say this is a kind of movie where it's like you rewatch it. And I mean, some things, yes, I noticed on a second watch. But then other things, it was like, notice this. We're doing it.
Well, actually, speaking of like things that like you should notice, apparently there's like, I don't know how many times, but the devil appears behind Lee Harker.
Just
and
a couple
it doesn't
times.
look like the devil. It's like almost like a person in a black veil, like the way the dolls look.
Yeah.
But it's more than twice.
Well, but there's a goat. There's like goat horns too. Did you see
missed
that
that.
part? Yeah, there's at least one where we see a little flash of like goat horns.
I will say something
metal.
just discreet. Well, to that point, like this movie is extremely let's call it conventional in its representation of Satan.
Yes.
It's like
Yes,
Satan
yes.
is snakes, goat horns,
Yes.
Yes.
red eyes,
Yes,
and like
yes,
so
yes,
everything
yes.
that you would imagine Satanism to
Yeah.
be, you're gonna get it. And
Right.
no surprises.
No, however, I wanna ask you guys about this.
I can't believe we haven't even talked about Nicolas Cage yet. Like how
We
have
will
not?
get
How
to
we
it.
not?
Oh,
How
we're
we
gonna
not?
get there.
Okay,
We're
okay,
gonna
okay,
get
okay,
there.
okay,
This will
okay.
bring up Nicolas
The
Cage.
thing I want to say
'Cause-
involves Nicolas.
But I also have a line I got to go ahead.
Okay, I was looking up an interview with the director, and what's his name?
Osgood Perkins. Is his
Yes,
name.
Osgood Perkins.
Oh, I said Osgood,
And
my bad.
I just don't agree with him on a lot of things that he wanted for this movie. And my question, the reason I Googled it was because I was like, what the fuck is the relation between T-Rex and the movie? And honestly, not. He just was obsessed with the band at the time. But one quote he said was, it just ended up making sense that I would make Longlegs into this glam guy who had sort of had his life disrupted in the 70s. He just wanted to be a glam rock guy. He maybe plays a guitar kind of badly in his mom's basement, and one day his life changed and he began to work for the devil. I think, not to go into critique, I'm just going to critique that quote, that is stupid. I don't see him
Wait,
as a glam
why?
rock guy at all, except for the T-Rex song played, and I'm curious to know what you guys think.
Wait. Sam, how do you not see him as a glam rocker? He's got Lou Reed question mark
No.
on the wall.
I think
He sings at one point and he says, "If you let me in now, it'll be nice. But if you don't, I'll have to come back as many
I
times."
know.
as
I'm
I
just
want."
saying his appearance.
Long hair.
The long hair, I guess. I don't know. The outfit didn't read that way to me. It just felt like a stretch.
The outfit reads more like Zeppelin to me than.
Yeah, I
But
can see
anyway,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Now we're getting into rock history.
Well, that was
No,
actually
we should though, if that's what he wanted
Yeah.
to go for.
All right, one of my big questions for you guys thematically was actually about music, because the movie starts with the sound of an amp and like the plugging in the amp, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
It's all based around the one T-Rex song.
yeah, no, I get that, but I was sort of like, what is going on with the use of a different medium within
Yeah.
film? I mean, like we have that, plus we have the Polaroid aspect ratio,
yeah.
especially over the credits.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, what's the deal with music? And once you suggest that Longlegs himself was a kind of kids party musician or something like that, I read him saying something along those lines.
Huh.
Yeah, I was just sort of like, why that era? Like I genuinely didn't because I'm not a music person and you guys are. I was really curious about the Lou Reed, I'd read something about Bob Dylan as a reference. Like
Interesting.
But I felt like, yeah, wait, I don't understand. These seem like a lot of mixed eras.
They are mixed eras for sure. And I hadn't really read anything about Lou Reed or Bob Dylan. I had read the stuff about the glam rock. And in this really awesome, I had read this really interesting dialogue, I guess, between two people on like Autostraddle, which was this. It was trying to get at the question, but ultimately subverting the question: is Longlegs homophobic? Right?
Oh,
And-
I'm ready, girl. Let's talk about it.
and well, and the thesis that I think was really the core of the conversation was that that's actually the wrong question. They're not really interested in the question of whether or not this is a homophobic story. They're much more interested in like larger questions as to like why people would find this story homophobic or this character.
Like, why would they
right?
read it that way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I think is a valid question.
Totally.
And to answer the question of glam rock, that was an era where we are seeing musicians who are breaking a lot of boundaries in terms of like gender and
Yeah.
gender expression. And yeah, I honestly feel, and this this kind of gets a little bit into like what I want to say about the movie, but I feel like that's kind of a part of it. There's so much in this movie that seems to present like Longlegs as an infiltrator of otherwise like what seems to me like very heteronormative, very traditional families.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I feel like the glam rock is kind of part and parcel to that. I don't know what y'all think.
I had felt as I was watching it like slightly uncomfortable
Yeah.
with some of the gender bendy vibes, I guess, of
Yeah.
Longlegs. But I think, we'll talk about it, but Nicolas Cage's performance is so exaggerated.
Yeah,
He
outrageous.
outrageous
Yeah.
that he does not. It does not come off in the way that Buffalo Bill does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it does feel like we're trading on the stock of, like creepy queer men or something in the basement or whatever. But that I didn't find it to be homophobic or transphobic. When I heard that was a discourse, I was like, God damn it! Like it's always. But at the same time, once I heard Osgood Perkins talking about how the movie is unpacking the fact that his mother lied about his father's homosexuality, I was like, well, it's really hard not to take Longlegs, the daddy Longlegs,
Right.
in the basement as the thing that's hidden away, literally behind the closet door.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was kind of like,
100%.
okay, like what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I felt like, and this was something I was trying to tease out, is the ways in which both Longlegs and the mother are sort of forced into doing something they don't want to do. And their kind of aggression against the nuclear family sort of might be part of that or something. Like
Yeah.
I kept thinking about Ruth as ambivalent, both not only towards the fact that she has to murder people to protect her daughter, but she also seems ambivalent about having a daughter.
Yeah.
Like when she calls, she doesn't really recognize who it is. And there's this theme
true.
where Ruth as well as Carrie Ann talk about their mother's bleeding. And
Bled and bled and bled. Yeah.
Bled. And then like I came out wrong in like having to have a C-section.
Yeah.
And so this kind of like ambivalence about the child, and like a birthday party is supposed to be this celebration of like the child, but also the birth of the child, right?
Right.
Or whatever. And so I thought it was kind of interesting in that respect to sort of be like, okay, yeah, there's some sort of, whether it's queer or not, like refusal or rejection of the sentimentality of children and family.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
writing.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
I hadn't really put together what I had wanted to say about it. I hadn't really accounted for like the birthday, like the centrality of the birthday in this as a thing. No, so that's really cool. So yeah, but Teagan, to come back to something that you had said before, I also hadn't really gotten the sense that we are supposed to get that this is like sort of like a queer coded serial killer trope.
Yeah,
I hadn't really felt
Not
that.
really.
I
Like,
didn't get that from him. I was just like, oh, he's eccentric.
I mean,
What every grandparent says about their queer child. He's just eccentric.
But he seems like asexual. Like I can't picture him being attracted. Oh, am I going to get canceled for that?
Oh, I hope so. I love when you guys get canceled.
let's go. What time is this? Number 6? Number 7?
Yeah.
I mean, so just to play devil's advocate for a second, I'd say that. I see what you did there. Like, I guess people kind of look at the character. He's had a lot of plastic surgery, which is a lot of what people had said.
Yes.
And he has. There are some features of his that seem effeminate.
Oh, definitely.
Traditionally speaking, he's got these big full lips.
Yes.
He's got long hair. So like I guess I can kind of see where that's coming from. It just doesn't seem like that huge a part of the movie to me. Like
No,
this,
I
that,
agree.
Yeah, because there's nothing sexual with the murders. So like Buffalo Bill, like if it's like that's part of the comparison, it was, I don't know, like I don't remember a lot from Silence of the Lambs, but there, like it was much more explicit when you see Buffalo Bill.
Oh, I remember.
And that scene that sticks out in everyone's head.
Yeah.
Longlegs wasn't quite doing something like that for me.
No.
It is interesting that people are reading it as homophobic and transphobic, but I'm like, but that was never mentioned in the movie. Like there's no sexual orientation of any kind mentioned.
Yeah, but it can still be code, right? Even though I agree with you, I didn't read it as. I mean, to slightly dip into, or just to preview some critique.
I mean, I think we can wiggle our way in.
we can wiggle.
But
Wiggle,
I'll put a
wiggle,
toe in
yeah.
the critique. Squeaky plot, wiggly critique. I would just say that it's invoking a lot of vibes, a familiar, very familiar vibe.
I do agree with
and not
that,
necessarily like doing or saying anything about them. And
Yeah.
so, androgynous guy in the basement, like playing with dolls.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
true.
that invokes femininity. I mean, isn't Lou Reed all about A Walk on the Wild Side?
Right.
Isn't that? And he's got a picture of Lou Reed on his makeup mirror or whatever. But again, like, yeah, I mean, Osgood Perkins came out and was like, anybody who is transphobic, fuck them. And like, he was very unequivocal that he didn't intend any meanings.
Right.
So on the one hand, yeah, I think you can always read things however you want, but I agree with you. I didn't take any of it in that way. And in fact, I actually think like there's a kind of reading in which Nicolas Cage or Longlegs and Ruth are like arguably the most interesting and perhaps the heroic characters of the film. So
Yeah.
because frankly, Lee becomes utterly, she recedes in the plot. She is so passive to the degree that she is unconscious and then shows up late to the climax.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
Totally, yeah.
that it's, you know, it almost seems to actually be more about the mom in some way. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that kind of queer not being a part of the family is interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's super interesting to me that Nicolas Cage's character is like, when we heard you were going to law enforcement, we were so happy. Like,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
think this has led to a lot of people's theory. I'm curious if you guys have heard about this or what you think that Longlegs is actually
Is
her
her
dad.
father.
And I find that tiresome because
Yeah.
it's like, but on the other hand, there's some interesting like suggestion of that. I like more the idea that like Satan is her daddy because
Sure.
Satan's is everybody's bad daddy in the movie.
Sure.
I mean, I think so. He's like the bad daddy downstairs
Yeah.
who's everywhere. I don't know.
I think that kind of just like is the realm of speculation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like a fan theory, basically. You know, like I'm not really quite here for the idea that Longlegs is her actual literal dad. I do think that Longlegs and Ruth and the dolls create an anti-nuclear
Yes,
family,
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
which is something that is like kind of like part and parcel to kind of what I wanted to say about it. I feel like this movie is like a send up of the anxieties of like the socially conservative nuclear family, thinking of like the 1950s, the mom, the dad, and the children, right? Like with the white picket fence and all that, right? And they do that by presenting these depictions of families that I found cartoonish and like over the top and stereotypical, and then inverting gender roles, not for Longlegs, but within the families themselves, to then like create horror or comedy. I'm not even sure.
Where did you see? You mean in this movie?
In this movie,
Where did
yeah.
you see that inversion?
All right, so let me get there. Okay, let me get there.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. So I want to talk about the like, just the like. First of all, like this movie, I think it's important to acknowledge that it is sillier than most people want to take it or were expecting it to be. Tonally, I think a lot of this movie like edges on, if not delves completely into like a sort of like cartoonish absurdity. So you've got obviously the biggest indicator of that is like Nicolas Cage's performance, which we got to talk about. I mean, the dude, wow. Like it's silly. It's like downright funny. Did y'all not laugh at times during this movie? Watching
Well, there
Nicolas
was
Cage?
one moment I laughed. When did I laugh? It was this morning when I was watching it.
You didn't find any, like the part where he breaks
Oh.
into song, the part where he...
No, I actually found the part where he breaks out into song. Oh, we're gonna hop into a little grating. I actually found it cringy.
Oh, wow.
Well,
I
Okay.
liked a lot of the movie, but that part to me, I was like, I found it difficult to understand who his character was at times.
Right.
And so that singing took me out of it.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I mean, if your point is that you started out by saying, from the very beginning of the podcast, you said it was tonally mixed. And
Yeah.
it sounds like the tones you think it's mixing are self-awareness and silliness, right?
Well,
and like
silliness and like
atmospheric vibes.
atmospheric like self-seriousness. Like it's got this, yeah.
And so, yeah, I think my question would be like, to whom is the silliness or the satire addressed?
That's a great question.
And like the
Yeah.
end, I mean, and when I remember when we were in the theater, people did laugh, and they started to laugh at the autopsy scene, and that for me was like a real turn in the movie when like
yes.
the coroner or whatever is doing an autopsy on a doll and describing it as if in the tone of a because Silence of the Lambs has a very famous autopsy scene that is incredibly serious and dour and dark.
Yeah.
This was like,
But-
and he's like, oh, it made me kept thinking of my ex-wife.
Ex-wife,
Yeah.
right.
Laughing, and they were genuinely laughing, or ironically, whatever. But I think, I definitely, once Nicolas Cage at the end of the movie kisses and says "Hail Satan,"
Right,
I was
right,
like,
right.
"Oh, okay." I didn't realize we were meant to take a lot of this as a joke.
Me either.
Right.
But on whom is the joke?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I do wonder
Which
that
is
too.
why, anyway.
wanna
But
pop in.
but I agree with you. I do think the tone is there.
A lot of the movie shifted once the dolls kind of appeared, I think.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
Visually, I think it stayed with the right, like it's not saying the right tone. It stayed the same tone.
Yeah.
Like, because I think, like, visually,
the
it did.
cinematography.
The
The
cinematography.
cinematography is
did.
more cohesive.
Yeah, it was which made the movie hard to understand what tone we were going
Sure,
in, which
sure.
is why at times I was like, am I supposed to be laughing at Longlegs? Am I uncomfortable?
Right,
and maybe that's the point, but I also,
I mean,
I don't know if it worked.
just if I can quickly reference
Yeah.
some
Please,
scenes.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we've got Longlegs saying, "And you'll be there, and you'll be
be
there,
there, and
you'll
yeah,
be
exactly,
there,"
yeah.
Wizard of
Like
Oz,
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
We've got the in the end, right, with Carter and his wife, and he's like, "Let's go to the kitchen." She's
Oh,
like, "I'll be
that's the
right
part
back,"
I
and he's
laughed
like,
at.
"I'm not.
Oh,
you're
I'll
not
be
coming
right
back."
back.
You know,
You're not coming back. Right.
and I was like,
fucking straight up
it's
funny.
So
That
that
was
was
straight up
very
funny.
funny.
Straight up
Yeah.
funny, right? And I guess that's
so,
kind of
yeah.
what I'm trying to say here is that like
The
there's also
hardware
something
scene,
kind
too.
of absurd. Yes. There's also something kind of absurd just conceptually in the idea that all of these people would just let this woman into their house. Like, I've got a gift from the church for your daughter's birthday. You're going to tell me that like most normal people would just be like, all right, come right on in.
I don't know though. Are Christians normal?
Canceled. There it is. You did it.
But that is the question of on whom is the satire, right?
Yes,
or like
that's right.
what is the
That's true.
Yes.
because on the one hand it seems to me a film that's not saying anything that I can discern about religion, and yet on the other hand it seems to be exclusively about religion. Like I couldn't figure that out, but it is
And the-
Christian
the re-
families that are
Well, the religion actually seems to go hand in hand with glam rock for
Yes.
Osgood Perkins,
Yes.
because he says it just became this weird synergetic thing that I leaned into. It was the most perfect blend of biblical, demonic poetry and glam rock.
Yes.
I
Yes.
had to,
And his whole,
like-
he sounds like he really likes himself.
I also get really annoyed when I read about his. It feels very improvisatory how he arrived at a lot of these things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But I still think there's a coherence there. And to your question, Teagan, about who is this joke supposed to be on?
Yeah.
I think it's worth also looking into like one of the areas that this movie really delights in caricaturizing is and being absurd with is like the traditional nuclear family.
Yeah.
Right? When we are introduced to Carter's family, I, for one, was like immediately struck with this like intense, cliched. They're framed in the hallway in this like father, mother, daughter position. And Carter himself also plays into a lot of like stereotypical dad stuff, right? Like when he goes out drinking while Lee tells him stuff about the case, and then he comes back. He's busted because he gets back to the house, and the lights are on. Right, it plays into this certain stereotype that like dads don't really have to play by the rules of the household, right?
yeah, and even at the end at the birthday party, like he's the one who would be cutting the cake,
Right.
And she's trying to be like the quote unquote good host.
She's full on Stepford wife
Yeah,
over there.
exactly.
Yes,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And it extends to other families. It's not just the Carter family. It's also the camera family. Like, think about that. All the shots that we get of that family, right?
Yeah.
In the expository dump, we see the mother is the one to open up the door to Ruth. Why? Because dad's at work, right? It's like, it's like heteronormative gender roles all day long. The mise-en-scène in that whole house is like super like plains, like
is this
rural farmhouse.
the camera house.
The camera
Yeah,
house.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. That's the house where we've got the picture of Nixon hanging on the wall. Right? That's the house where, like, basically they just couldn't signal harder, I feel like, the overt stereotype of a family that we have here. And so, like, that to me leads me to, like, this question of, like, so how do I interpret the horror that happens to these people? Satan, I think, comes into this, right? Like he is intentionally inverting a sense of traditionalism, which is what I said before, and you had wanted to know more information about, right? And so what I'm talking about is that there's I feel like there's this Catholic conception of what a mother and father are supposed to be for a family. And one of the big things for fathers in particular is a protector, right? And so it turns the protector into the destroyer, right? The mother, the matriarch is now that she's done popped out the babies, supposed to be kind of chaste. And I read kind of a lot into that really interesting moment where she's in front of the doll in her underwear with this knife.
Yeah.
And it's very sexual moment.
She
Can we all agree that was hot, right?
I thought it was hot, yeah.
Jen, you too? Jen's nodding
I
and
was
being
what was wrong with that woman?
She's foaming at the mouth. Wow.
Insane.
Calm down.
she just wants to fuck her daughter's doll.
But she does stab the doll. She does stab the doll.
She
But
does.
it's a horny stabbing. Anyway,
It's a horny
sorry.
stab.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like when people hornily stab dolls, it doesn't do much for me.
It doesn't do a lot. That's not
No.
your kink?
No.
Jen kink shaming.
Look, if it's your thing to stab dolls, that's okay. It's just not. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
Yeah. On the one hand, I was like, I feel like I can take this movie two ways. I can either feel like it's being sincere in its depiction of things and find it actually kind of offensive and conservative. And
Wait, how would it be?
Yeah.
let me get there.
Harry, we have so many
Let me say the
questions.
words. On the one hand, I feel like there is a social conservative idea out there that says the nuclear family is inherently pure and good, and that evil only comes in from outside, right? And so what you need to do is protect your family from those outside influences, right? And I find that that is the side of the interpretation of this movie that I find kind of offensive.
Why?
Why is it offensive?
Yeah. Oh, because it's shitting on nuclear families?
No.
No, I find it offensive to think that evil only comes in from outside of nuclear
got it.
family.
Yeah, because what you're saying is that.
But wait, I thought you were saying it's satirizing that.
Well, that's what I'm ultimately landing on.
Okay.
But I'm at the
Got it.
kind of at a crossroads here.
the evil would be within the actual families.
Right, I'm saying it's
It
totally
wouldn't be
possible for
something on the
evil to
outside.
be in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Right,
But it's like
right.
saying that they were pure beforehand.
They were pure before, and this
now
external force,
yeah.
which, by the way, seems like maybe has this interesting effeminate features, maybe slightly queer coded, coming in to destroy the nuclear family, right? Which
So that would be like
that feels icky to me, right? But the other half of it is what if we're supposed to be highlighting how outrageous and absurd and cartoonish this nuclear family is, right? I feel like there is a takeaway here where we feel like we're peering into a socially conservative brain as they get up there and soapbox about, the traditional nuclear family and how it should be given priority over other citizens. Basically, I feel like this movie could be taken as a window into J.D. Vance's brain, if that makes any sense.
I think I'm understanding your point,
Yeah.
which is that the film is critiquing that conservative narrative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I certainly think I agree with that. I mean, again, to what extent is its satirical dimensions just a consequence of incoherence, or is it intentional? We can debate that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, literally, what's the last line that Ruth says before she's shot in the head by her daughter? Lee says, "Mom, please," and she says, "Don't call me that." Right. So she's literally saying, "Do not call me a mom.
Right.
I am not a mother. I don't want to be your mother."
Right.
And so this kind of exposing the ambivalence and hatred within the maternal daughter relationship.
Yeah.
And then as you're saying too, I mean, the implication is that these husbands are, that Satan is only inviting them to flourish their their evil propensities, right? I mean, the way that Longlegs explains it is that they have a choice, right? They can either accept the gift, destroy themselves and each other, or they can bow down and kill other people. But so, I mean, that's part of the question of the incoherence is like, one could argue from that conservative perspective that by killing each other, they are not serving Satan's purpose,
That's
right?
true, because they're
because
not
what
killing
Satan
other
wants
people.
supposedly is for them to bow down and like, you know, do the dirty work that cleans as it dirties like a mop. On the other hand, Satan loves to fuck with you, right? I mean, he's a Faustian bargain that either way you're fucked. So in any case, I think I agree with you that idea is there, that it's sort of
And that, I feel like I had a very long-winded way of basically getting there. So
not
thank you for bearing with me through that.
Not at all. I think it's so right on.
Let's hop into some critique here, because we're
Okay, I'm ready.
the note that we ended on is complicated and muddy in the movie. Like, what does Satan want exactly?
Who knows?
Teagan's face. Like, there's so many questions I have, and I do feel like this movie is more like what would you call it? Like aesthetic over substance. I think that it's
style vibes.
Yes, and I feel like I've seen one of his other movies, and I felt like that about that one too.
Oh, really? Okay.
He very much likes. Like, I love the way it looked. It was beautiful. I love some of the shots, like when they're in the barn and the two windows are like shining the light down, or when she goes into her house in the cabin and it's that weird light above her head.
So good.
Right? The visuals were great. But when you break down the plot, even when you broke down the summary in the beginning, it's like, what the fuck is this plot?
I expertly broke it down.
It was
Like,
beautiful.
yeah, you did. Just to go into a couple things, I feel like I like the homage to like Seven and those 90s type movies. Silence of the Lambs, that kind of like procedural type movie, if you will. The whole Satan supernatural thing kind of took me out of it.
Oh, really?
Well, I think it was fine. But it was too much. Like, okay, now we've got balls in the head, and the balls apparently do something. Like, what the fuck? Like, it started to overcomplicate itself and ask too many questions. And if this was a movie that was meant to be like ambiguous at parts, it wasn't. It lended itself for us to ask all these questions. Like, for example, when her mom shoots the doll's, I guess it would be Lee's doll. Like when her mom shoots Lee's doll's head, a gray black haze comes out of the ball and Lee's head.
Right.
So is Satan leaving? Why does she fall to the, like, she falls to the ground? Like, what's happening? How much are they connected? And is Longlegs doing witchcraft? How does Satan get into them? Like, I know there were all these Satanist killers, like Son of Sam, Richard Ramirez, but it's like they were just Satanists. It didn't actually do anything. So this is like the plot. I'm so sorry. This is just frustrating me the second time I watched it more. Like, this is like saying like, oh, here's a serial killer who can actually do satanic things. And he's a really good doll maker too, by the way. I thought the movie would have been way better without the dolls.
Oh, I completely agree. And I felt like, well, so my big note was hat on a hat. I was like, it was just like, okay, so first you've got like a satanic glam rocker who is also a really great doll maker, like great odds. Then he finds these like perfect silver balls.
I don't know if you know. All glam rockers are doll makers.
I mean, you know, then it's like he's got these dolls, then he puts the balls inside the dolls, but inside the balls of the dolls
is the
smoke.
Satan juice.
You know?
Yeah.
The dolls not only have to look like the kids, but then he's also got to leave a letter that is in a cryptogram, just like the Zodiac Killer. But like,
what's that for?
But for whom and why?
And she solves it so fast.
And then he also has to have someone else deliver them because I guess he's bad at it. And frankly, when we saw him deliver it, I was like, yeah. You need a proxy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
you
need
really
a proxy.
needed it because you are not great at not appearing
100%.
monstrous.
No,
and so it was just like,
skills.
but also guys, like just UPS that shit. It's the 90s. Like just mail the box, they bring it in. But no, it has to be, you have to accept the gift.
Like a vampire, you have to invite it in.
And of course, and wait, what's Harker's name? Jonathan Harker from Dracula.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
I was like, come on, like, okay, so he's a vampire, but he's also Satan. Anyway, but it was just like,
It feels like monster vomit.
Overcomplicating, but also like maybe to the point of vibes. It's like, why do we need cryptograms? Because the Zodiac did it. Why do we need accomplices? Because Manson did it. Like, why do we need religious references? Because Seven did it. Like, why do we,
Why do we need dolls?
Well,
Well, look, dolls are creepy. But why do they have to look like? I don't know.
And I guess this is my thing. I guess I just got so worked up with this movie that I was just like, it works. Like it's just like.
Well, to be fair, Harry, I thought that the first time I saw it in the theater.
It's just like it's so.
I did not feel that the first time.
It's just like so. I actually I really didn't like it the first time.
Oh,
I
me
didn't
too.
like the on first time. I liked it better on second.
I did too. The second time, but the second time I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna enjoy the vibes.
I was the opposite. I really enjoyed it the first time, and the second time I was like, this is not what I watched.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you both, how do you deal with these movies where, on the one hand, they want to be kind of ambiguous, and this movie beckons for that, for example, in the ending, right?
Yeah,
it's like, is she going to kill the doll or not?
Right,
if
like,
she
what's
does,
that mean?
And if she does, what happens to Ruby? If she doesn't, what happens to Ruby, right?
Right, sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
and what happens to Lee now that her mom is dead and the ritual wasn't completed?
And also that she's broken the connection with the doll. Fine, it's all ambiguous, whatever. On the other hand, you're given a lengthy voiceover from her mother being like, so I was a nurse and then I started murdering families. She literally says,
she does.
Then I started murdering families and that would be my new job. And that was when I was like, oh, we're in full-on camp. But also, how much explanation do you want? Because I found this to be that problem of like, I'm asking logic questions I don't want to ask. Like, I don't want to ask why the devil works in piddly ways. Like, why does the devil care about numbers and dates? Why can some kids escape and some kids can't? Why would Longlegs put the doll in the farmhouse?
Right.
Why does he put a little note for her? Like, why? And I'm like, I don't want to, I just want to ride the vibe. Anyway, so how do you feel about the tension between logic and irrationality?
It's weird. I land somewhere in the middle, to be perfectly honest with you. I scoured Reddit and found a bunch of people's explanations and ideas and theories, and I think they satisfied enough of my curiosities about that stuff to like be able to appreciate what I felt like was like the larger impression the movie was supposed to create, the larger like satire that I pointed out. Like so yeah, that's kind of where I landed. Jen?
I think of movies like the way that I think of art. I should be able to get everything I need from watching it. I shouldn't have to read about it to understand things.
Because you hate reading.
No, because, and I think Osgood Perkins would see himself as an artist based on the movies that he does, that if to do a successful film, I should be able to watch it and get it or make my own interpretations. I think that the problem with this is it lent itself to a lot of explanation. It was figuring out the code. Everything was like a little mystery that had to be solved, and then suddenly things went kind of off the rails halfway through and became more ambiguous, which is fine, but that's not what I was told I was getting.
Yeah.
And so therefore it didn't work to me. I do want to say one little thing. I was talking with my sister about this, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get her reading 100% right, because it was a while ago that we talked about it. And by that, I mean 2 weeks, and my brain doesn't work right. But at the end of the movie, her gun does not shoot the doll.
Right.
So we're left with like this.
She has performance anxiety.
The gun has performance.
The gun has performance.
The phallus does not go.
It can't perform.
Oh my god. But anyway, so that kind of leaves it ambiguous, and like her reading was that like, oh, now Lee has to be like her mom and the protector
Yes.
of the child
Yes.
and like do the killings.
Right.
And I love that reading, but at the same time I was thinking about it more, and I was like, I don't think Lee has those values to do that. So I don't think she would become her mom based on what we know her of. But again, I like an open-ended ending, but the fact it was the fucking dolls and their stupid little balls in their heads and all that, that's
doll balls.
like the doll ball,
Stupid
the doll
little
balls.
balls.
But that kind of ambiguity ruined it for me.
Right. Well, if I can, just as one follow up to that on logic problems I had, it drove me fucking crazy that, I mean, within the first 20 minutes, they're like, okay, so it seems that this killer kills people who have their birthday that falls on the 14th of the month. They say that in the first like 15 minutes. Maybe.
Yeah.
And these two FBI agents, the one doesn't say, hey, that's funny, my daughter's birthday's on the 14th. And Lee's also like, strange, so's mine. Like,
Actually, that's a good
Right.
they are the worst detectives ever. And it drove me fucking crazy.
In defense of Lee, I read her as guarding a lot of that information.
Yeah.
And like
Possibly.
trying to not put out there that she knows that she's closer to this than he does.
But
so this is
Carter-
my Carter should know.
Carter
He
should
be
know.
like,
Yeah.
He's got no excuse.
I mean, and frankly, for
he's an idiot.
He's a shitty
this
father.
really irritated me. Like, I'm not good at watching movies. I'm always like, wait, what? That happened? Like, I'm
Right.
not good at telegraphing. And this movie's like, hey, meet Ruby. She's like, I have a birthday coming up. And I was like, well, sorry, you're going to be dead. You know what I mean? Like, or, you know, the constant, like, he's right under your feet. It's like, oh, okay. I guess he's in
The
the
basement thing surprised me. What?
Oh, it did? Come on.
No, that part, the first time I was like, what? That's
Okay, but
awesome.
here, this is genuinely my frustration with. I want to talk about the Nicolas Cage of it all, but before that, my huge problem with the movie is Lee's character. I love Micah Monroe as an actress. It Follows, Watcher is a fantastic film if people haven't seen it. I think she's really talented. I found her to be either miscast in this film or she's doing the best she can with a character that makes no sense. Because on the one hand, she seems brilliant, insightful, intuitive. And then on the other hand, she is the worst detective in the world. And
Right.
we are meant to believe that the reason she's so bad at detecting is because Satan is in her brain, pushing her to look certain ways and not look other ways.
Right.
And that to me was one of the thematic points of the film, is like, because they keep repeating, if you look hard enough, if you look too long at something, and they're kind of all invoking I think it's Santayana or whatever, like, if you look too long into or it's Nietzsche, whatever. If you look too long into the void starts to stare back at you.
Yes.
Or
Right,
whatever,
right,
you know?
right.
And like, okay, fine. But like, Lee, basically, like, she has no agency in the film. She doesn't realize that the killer is underneath her house. She doesn't notice that the car, she's never, I mean, we're talking 27 years. She's not noticed anything. And
Yeah.
like, again,
Yeah,
I don't,
that's true.
I don't mean to be like logic, whatever, but it on a structural level, it really bothered me because she's sort of a blank slate as a character. And then what does she actually accomplish on her own? Like, Satan is the one who's directing her attention to evil things.
Sure.
Longlegs gives her the cipher to
Right.
solve his letters. And then what? Like, she doesn't actually like solve anything. And so and then we have these characters who keep implying that she's not ready for this. And I think that that's meant to invoke Silence of the Lambs. But in Silence of the Lambs, the point is that we've got this, you know, Agent Starling, who is not yet a full agent, but she's also a woman, and everyone else is a man, and they are all underestimating her as these patriarchal figures.
Right.
But the people who keep underestimating Lee are women. Like, the
Yeah.
woman who analyzes the body, like, whatever, she's the forensic pathologist, when she pulls back the bed and she's like, are you sure you want her to see this?
Right,
Oh,
right, right.
That's a
yes.
woman. It's Agent Browning who's the one in the car that says, are you sure she's ready for this?
Right,
It's
right,
women
right.
who keep underestimating her.
That's
As
interesting.
if, like, oh, it's not the men that are sexist in 1993. And so when Lee says to Ruby, like, yeah, it is hard to be a female FBI agent, the film never gives us any sense of why. Because, and it also presumes a world in which actually, no, it looks like there's tons of lady FBI agents and they just don't have each other's back.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Also, she saw her coworker, partner, whatever the fuck, get shot in the beginning, and then she's just like moving on with my life.
I think that's the problem for me, is like if you have a character that's emotionally repressed or emotionally unavailable or neurodivergent or whatever, what changes by the end, or how does that matter? Once she wakes up from her memories and has her consciousness back, nothing is different.
I don't think she
as far
has
as
much
I can
of an
tell.
arc. No,
I mean, tell me how her character changes over the course of the whole movie.
She learns that her mom has been harboring a serial killer and has been helping him. Mm-hmm. But, like, what does that mean to her?
And very quickly is like, yeah, I'm going to shoot my mom.
But
she's also, die. I'm fine with it.
She doesn't believe anything in the nuclear family or in religion or in anything, right? And as far as I can tell, right? So it's not like she then is like, oh my gosh, I have a crisis of faith and consciousness.
No,
you're right. And it feels like a missed opportunity to not have something like her grappling with any of the themes of this movie, right? Like, she just kind of feels like she just seems like a mannequin moving through this movie.
Like she's one of the dolls.
Like the doll.
She quite literally is, and I don't understand that. I was like, wait, so...
Yeah, I'm confused.
I don't understand.
Because one person had a doll that was stuck in a barn in the dark and she was in a coma.
Right.
Yeah.
But like her doll must be somewhere.
Well, her mom had her doll outside, right? Because that's the doll she shot.
Yeah, but before that, maybe in a nice storage closet.
Right before that.
But like, why is she
able
to...
No. There is, right before that scene where her mom shoots her and she's like, blah, blah, blah. Lee's walking through the house.
Yeah.
And there is a doll in the pile of hoarder shit that her mom has. And I wonder if that's the doll.
Maybe.
You can see it in the background.
But, yeah.
I mean, I do think... I guess the reason the gender part bothers me is, like, if it's trying to say something about the nuclear family and the bad daddy, Longlegs, etc., or bad Satan daddy or whatever, then what is it doing with women? And what is it trying to say about gender here? Like, I just didn't... And Lee she should matter in some way. Unless the point is, what would it mean to have an utterly passive character who believes she's in charge of her life and then realizes actually everything that you thought... Every moment you thought you had choice actually was predetermined. And you're fated, and you're in some sort of Greek tragedy.
But you don't see that reaction from her.
Yeah, and there's also none of that commentary, really. Yeah. Like, there's... I don't think.
No, I agree.
Really.
No.
Like...
I mean, I think that structurally is there, but not
I feel like
thematically.
a lot of this movie was the director being like, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, guys, let's do this. That's
exactly what Aaron Arms said about Skinamarink.
Skinamarink, I disagree. I disagree with Aaron. That movie stayed ambiguous.
True. I saw some Reddit thread was like Skinamarink or Longlegs is the new Skinamarink.
Fuck that person.
I'm sorry.
Oh wait, and on that note, we should rate it.
Rate it.
Come on, wait.
Oh no, you have more to say. I'm sorry, Teagan has more to say.
No, I'm sorry, but we have to talk about Nicolas Cage.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Oh no, not the beast! Not the beast! Ah!
Where do we start?
Well,
where do we start? I mean,
what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this?
Can I open with So there's a scene. The reason we're having such a hard time with this, have y'all seen Community by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a scene late in the show where they're taking a class about Nicolas Cage, good or bad. Have you seen this episode?
Oh my God! Yes, I forgot about
it's like
this.
late show. It's very hit or miss at that point, but I think it's a great episode. And they're sitting in class talking about whether Nicolas Cage is good or bad, and one of the characters says something along the lines of,
I don't know. If I was in 70 films over 30 years and I spent each one talking at random volumes, I might accidentally win an Oscar.
And I just think that it's so accurate to how I feel about this man.
Yes.
Because I feel like sometimes you see him and you're like, damn, that was great. And other times you're like, how the fuck did he get any acting roles? Like...
I think, okay, so I'm really ambivalent about this performance and about
Same.
the choices.
I'm mixed, yeah.
On the
Yep.
one hand, I think it's actually kind of interesting. A lot of his gesticulations, his voice intonations, like he's clearly having fun. And there are moments that are genuinely creepy, especially that opening
The opening scene.
I think
Yeah.
the opening scene is
Scariest part of the whole movie.
it's so
Agreed.
incredible, and the reaction in the theater to it was just crackling, and it was so exciting. He leans down and it cuts, and his voice is so whatever. I mean, I really felt like he was underserved by the reveal of him so early in the film
Yes.
and without fanfare.
Yeah.
It's not like they waited until the interrogation scene,
Right.
which, I had problems with the interrogation. I've seen a lot of interrogation scenes. We don't need another Joker, Batman, whatever.
Yes.
But nonetheless, I thought it was an interesting, exactly, an interesting scene. But no, he's sort of revealed on the way to the hardware store.
Yes.
Which begs the question of this weirdo motherfucker. Nobody is calling the cops on him.
I know.
When he's strangely harassing young girls. Like, how
young
has
girl
he
in the-
possibly contained himself
And
for
she
so
does
long?
say, she's like,
Dad.
Dad, the gross guy's here again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he does this crazy thing with the cuckoo, almost like
Oh,
he's
yeah.
a clock, or maybe he's a bird, or
He
whatever.
says cuckoo a lot. That's
But
like
he,
his
and he
like
puts
call.
his hands over his
Yeah,
eyes.
just like
He does
a-
the weird
Which
yeah.
is, but I had a hard time.
The girl
being-
says, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that.
Yeah.
It's just
and like
me neither, man.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Well, and I feel like that gives more power to your argument, Harry, about the kind of self-knowing winking seriousness.
Yeah.
And maybe it truly is the marketing of this film that is the problem, where it's like, this is the scariest thing you will ever see.
This is what I
it's
wanted
gonna
to get
be
to,
dark,
yes.
dark vibes or whatever.
Yes.
And then Nicolas Cage is like, no, I'm going to do
I'm gonna be a fucking clown.
I'm going to be a clown,
Yeah.
glam rock weirdo, whatever.
Yep.
I'm going to be a serial killer clown.
But if I can just add one
Yeah.
point, but my concern is I felt like the makeup really did him a disservice. I felt
interesting.
like by making his evil manifest on his face in such an obvious way, it took away from the potential creepiness of his performance.
Yes.
So it was just so obvious from the costume and the makeup that it was like, well, yeah, you're a monster.
Right,
Where
right.
it's like,
Right.
So his expressions and everything just go in line with that.
Right.
It's expected rather than
Yeah.
unsettling because he looks normal.
Yes. So Teagan, the thing you said that I had wanted to get to,
Yeah.
as a part of what I think this marketing is why this movie succeeded financially,
Yeah.
but I think that it's also been a curse for this movie.
Yes.
Because I think that
Yeah.
it grossly misrepresented what this movie actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the marketing was fucking brilliant. You'd call
Brilliant.
and you'd get Longlegs talking to you.
Yeah.
And then there was a website that made it look like the 90s where they showed those crime scene photos, and the crime scene
Yep.
photos were great.
Yeah.
Oh, they were great.
But all those things made me think, oh my God, this is going to be.
I'm going to get eviscerated in this
Yes.
movie. And the scariest part was the first 4 minutes.
Yep.
There's a camp element to Hannibal Lecter, but what's so creepy about him is that the camp turns off and then he bites your face. You know
Sure,
what I mean?
sure,
So this it invokes Silence of the Lambs, but it goes full silly.
It
Is
does.
not. Silence of the Lambs is pretty dour, I think, no matter
Yeah.
how much it
Yeah.
has the little queer flourishes or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. It maintains its tone better than. I just think that this is just now I'm just going to start ranting, but I think that we're kind of in an era, a sort of a it's all been done woo-hoo-hoo era, where we're now just kind of there's just a lot that's very. There's a lot of pastiche. There's a lot of things that we're trying to imitate and conjure up and reference, and the drive to create something new out of it is just making it's getting weird. It's making it weird.
Yeah,
and
this
it's
is-
making
yeah.
it we don't stick to a tone anymore. It's gotta be this fluid tone to it that people don't really know what to do with. And
Well, this is
I don't know.
a question that I had for both of you was, where do you think we're at with art house horror? Because
yeah.
for a while that was kind of, I mean, you could debate the title of it or whatever, but A24 horror,
Yeah.
metaphor horror, or whatever. But
Elevated horror.
Elevated horror. I
Elevated
forgot
horror,
about that.
yeah.
Yeah, but from the Babadook and It Follows onward.
Yeah, where are
right?
we?
Yeah.
But also do you have a theory of why we're seeing such a rise in the satanic films? Because what's so strange to me is that like the earlier iteration of satanic films was either in response to or in the immediate aftermath of a satanic panic.
Right.
One could argue that we're in such a moment with a sort of QAnon-esque kind of
Sure.
thing, but at the same time, it doesn't feel to me like contemporary Christian nationalism is, the J.D. Vance of it all, is that you were saying, is like, I don't hear a lot of satanic discourse in it, and anyway, so I'm just kind of confused why
is it
we're
so-
seeing, because, and I couldn't tell whether, the extent to which this film wanted me to take any of it seriously, because it's all extremely conventional
Yes.
versions of it.
Yes.
But
yes.
yeah, I was just kind of curious where you guys think we're at with those two genres.
I'm trying to think of other Satan movies. Come out.
Immaculate Omen.
Oh, yeah.
What else have you guys done? I mean, I would argue Talk to Me semi fits the mode as a
Wasn't
possession film.
even like pop stuff, like Conjuring.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
there like a super Catholic
There was
element to that
The
too?
Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It was the most
Yeah.
recent one.
The Nun.
The Nun.
So part of me feels like Satan as a figure is just kind of universal and can be applied to whatever elevated horror topic you kind of want to create, right? Part of my complaint about elevated horror, I feel like when it's done badly, is that it feels like a horror movie on X topic. You know what I mean? It feels like here's the topic we're doing, and here's a
Yes.
horror movie about it, and don't you see this clever allegory that
Yes.
we've come up with?
Yep.
And so, so like I feel.
What's the greatest offender of that for you?
Ooh, that's a
Like-
great question.
Like worst version of it?
Yeah,
Like the greatest offender of like just like a bad
two on the nose.
two on the Smile.
Oh.
Oh, Smile was bullshit.
Oh, I really liked Smile, but I don't disagree. It was like
was
trauma,
just
trauma,
like,
trauma, trauma, trauma. But
Amelia.
I liked it for other reasons, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
Mine would be, I'm sure there's a lot of movies with this name, but Lucky. It's a movie on Shudder. I think it's from like 2023, 2024. It's so on the nose of men are bad.
Oh,
And you're
well,
like-
to that effect, Men. Did you see
Oh
Men?
my fucking
Men's the
God.
worst
I
one.
hate that movie.
You see Men?
Yeah.
That's the one for me.
Huge eye rolls all around.
I cut you
everyone.
off, though. I apologize.
It feels like a horror movie
allegory.
on issue of the week.
Yeah.
Is like that's when it's done really badly.
Instead of Monster of the Week, it's Issue of the
Issue
Week.
of the
That's
week
so funny, yeah.
that we create a monster of, but you can ascribe Satan to whatever you want. Like it's. Like
so lazy.
It's universal. It's built into our like our programmed mythology, like our collective programmed mythology. You know what I mean? Like we just can't. I don't know. I guess that's my answer, but I'm unsatisfied by it. To be perfectly honest,
Unsatisfied by your answer.
I'm unsatisfied by my own answer. Yeah.
I do think. I think that on the one hand, there's something interesting about the relationship between the Catholicism, the Satanism, and the nuclear family critique.
Yeah.
What is still striking me about your analysis is like, okay, if it's kind of critiquing or if it's giving you a representation of 1950s nuclear families, which it really does.
Yeah.
Like that's not the family we have right now.
No.
So what's the relevance of that critique other than the kind of J.D. Vance nostalgia
Right,
for it?
because I think because we do have the rise of that conservative Christian nationalism that is still really trying hard to like fight for political power, and I think that illustrating that in absurdity is a worthwhile endeavor, artistically speaking.
No, guys, I really feel like
Wait,
we gotta rate it.
No, I want to roll back. We started this conversation trying to talk about Nicolas Cage.
Oh
Yes,
shit,
sorry,
you're right.
yes.
And
we
like
have to stick to Nicolas Cage.
we-
as though
Do
we
we
are
good
possessed
or
by
bad? Good or
satanic
bad?
dolls, we just veered off and we never addressed.
We never addressed.
Yeah, and it's a binary
Nicolas
choice.
Cage.
Nicolas Cage, good or bad?
Good or bad?
Should we just rate Nicolas Cage?
Well,
Oh shit!
But wait, let me ask Jen. Jen, let me ask you your perspective because I was certain that you were going to hate his performance. Like, and we have, okay, by the way, we have not, we saw this movie like 2 months ago, and we have not talked about it, and it's been killing me. And Harry, I just want you to know, it's been a real challenge for our relationship.
Oh my God.
Like and we've had nothing to talk about.
I'm so...
For 2 months, and we sit here in silence, staring at each other,
This
trying
is
to
not
guess.
true.
I am so
what we think
honored
about
that you
Longlegs.
bled your relationship for us, for this podcast. I really appreciate it.
And there were many times where I was like, come on, just a little.
I
just
know
a
you
little
were, and I was
bit
like,
of-
no.
Anyway, but I was guessing that you would hate his performance as like over the top and cheesy, but I also don't really know what you think of Nicolas Cage performances as such.
Nicolas Cage.
I like some Nicolas Cage performances, and I like him when he does the weirder shit, for sure. Teagan is taking notes right now as if I'm in therapy and I'm talking about Nicolas Cage.
Tell me about Nicolas Cage.
But yeah, I like when I like when he does weird shit. I think that this was, again, I don't know. I think it was a combination of Nicolas Cage and a combination of the writing for Nicolas Cage that made me be like, who is his character? And it's not more like, who's his character? I want to know more. It's who the fuck is his character? Because I'm losing interest now. Like, I thought we saw his face too soon.
Yeah.
I thought that like.
But again, that's because you wanted what was marketed to you.
I did. I wanted
feel
what was
like.
marketed to me.
You wanted what was marketed
Yes,
to you,
and
not what the movie. Like, yeah.
the trailer for the movie had Nicolas Cage just talking over it. He wasn't even in the trailer.
Yeah.
And the phone call, his voice sounded so creepy in the phone call. I really wanted a creepy serial killer movie, and that's not what I got. And so I was a little disappointed with the character.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm more disappointed with the character as a whole than just his performance. Because I don't think he was bad in it. I just don't think some of the writing was great either.
And what would bad be? Could you?
Like those National Treasure movies that he did. That's trash. Those are trash.
But he's playing very. I mean, compared to this movie, he's playing it just very straight.
Straight,
in that movie.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
like very.
Yeah, but I've seen him do campy. And it's like, I feel like, was he trying to do campy? Was he trying to do serious in this? Maybe that is bad then.
Longlegs is so kind of inconsistent to me as a character, but as a performance, I think it's like really watchable. It's just that I have a really hard time I have a hard time watching it and not being like, oh, that's Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
And when we were in the
Agreed.
theater, like the minute he shows up, I was like, oh man.
Is there a movie
this
that you've seen where you're like with Nicolas Cage where you're not like, oh, that's Nicolas Cage? I'm just curious.
where
he's
he
both, like-
disappears into
yeah,
the role?
yeah.
He's both like perfect for the role
Yeah.
and the worst possible person
Yeah.
for the role because you know it's Nicolas Cage and you know he's gonna give an unhinged.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like as to your points about the marketing, like is that his fault or is that the meta fictional kind of the nods to, hey, it's Nicolas Cage, right?
Right.
Like when we went to see Mandy, I remember this was a problem. Like everybody in the audience was laughing when he's going through this like horrific moment because it's like, Nicolas Cage, right?
Like trying to act.
Right,
Yeah,
but within
yeah.
the context of the film, it was not supposed to be funny. And it was like, well, whose fault is that? Is that Nicolas Cage? Is it the movie? Or is it the audience that wants and expects batshit?
Oh, it's the
Because
audience.
that's the Nicolas Cage brand.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure, wasn't I annoyed by that?
You weren't there.
Oh, that's right. You showed it to me
You were
later.
retrospectively annoyed by it. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I kept wondering what this movie would be like if it was not Nicolas Cage.
Truth. All right, we should give this a number, y'all.
We got to do it.
Let's give it a number.
All right. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I am going to give this a 6
All right.
because at the end of the day, whether it is satire or just an incoherent movie, I had fun watching it. I truly did. Like, Nicolas Cage is unhinged and hilarious, either in a good or bad way. I truly was on board for like the whole first and second act, really. Like I was into it. I did like the twist on the sort of police procedural vibe where we had psychic, supernatural elements. I was like, all right, this kind of feels a little fresh. I'm into that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think y'all have, you've shaken my faith a little bit that like a lot of this was intentional, and I can enjoy it that way. I'm not sure everybody should. So I think that's where I'm at. 6. So just like mildly.
Like a solid movie.
Solid 6. Like
yeah.
Well, I mean, 5 is like I could care if it was made or not made. So you know what I mean?
All right. I like that 5 would be neutral, but you're like, I care less if this shit was made. Like you're like, yeah.
5 is like neutral. It's like if it wasn't made, I wouldn't miss it, but it has been made.
So you might watch it.
So I don't care. Yeah, you know.
I think I am gonna go with a similar. I'm gonna go with 6.5.
Yeah.
I really liked it visually. Like watching it again, I was like, this movie is so pretty to look at. I love all of how it's shot. I really like. I don't know. I was trying to figure out how to describe this trope in horror movies and crime movies, but like the sudden gunshot. Type stuff.
Yeah.
Like when that happens within the first 10 minutes,
loved.
And
just
then
the sort of
it kind of happens.
The blitzkrieg.
Yeah, it kind of happens at the end too, where her mom shoots the detective in the car.
Yes.
And I loved that too.
And quick question, why did she shoot her? Anyway, keep going.
The mom, by that point, she was
too
just
close.
like, yeah, she's too close. She's too close.
She literally was just dropping her off like, hey, bye. What if that was her Uber? Anyway, keep going.
I mean, the
Give
Uber
it 5
driver's
stars.
gotta
Big
go.
tip.
No witnesses. But yeah, I really liked those scenes. I think there was a lot that I liked. I like a procedural movie. I liked most of the acting, but it started to fall apart and make no sense to me, and it became convoluted and had too much in it, and it made me find the second rewatch a little bit draggy and more difficult. So like it's a 6.5. I'd recommend it to people.
Wow, this is a really exciting moment for me to be a part of the podcast.
This
I
is
really just want to express my gratitude.
This is the first time you get to rate something on the podcast.
I know, yeah. Every other personal rating I've given you has just been meaningless, but now this one's official and
It's on the record.
It will be archived. But also, this could be my last time ever on the pod. I don't know if you'll ever circle back to partners. Who can say? I really am savoring and stretching this. I'm just praying Harry doesn't edit it all out.
Are you confident about your answer?
Oh, I'm very confident about it. You might think that I'm vamping for time, but I'm not. No, the first thing I want to say, some things I really liked. I love the opening of the film.
Yeah.
I really thought that was striking and exciting. Then I loved the second opening of the film when they the FBI agent gets shot in the face.
Yep.
I loved the cabin scene. I didn't like the narrative premise that he's giving her the answer to the clues, but I loved the staging and atmosphere of her walking outside of her house, him going in, and the kind of permeability of spaces I really liked. And I just like the lighting and atmosphere throughout the whole film. I thought that was all really excellent. However, I really couldn't stand some aspects of this film, and I felt like it represented some trends in contemporary filmmaking and horror that irritate me. So the first thing is, not every movie needs a twist. And like, if you're gonna have a twist, it needs to be coherent and make sense. And so like, the twist that the mom did it, and then not only that, but Longlegs was in the basement, I feel like undermines everything that's interesting about Lee as a character and makes her utterly passive and kind of ridiculous. And I understand that the point is that she doesn't see certain things and whatever, but it just really irritated me, and I felt like it didn't actually pay off in any significant way. Watching it a second time, I was like, oh my God, a bad English major wrote this movie, where it's like got all this, it's drenched in symbolism, but without significance. So Longlegs' car has a Capricorn hanging from the rearview mirror. The Capricorn is the sign of the devil in tarot. And it's like, so? Like, so what? You know? And I could point to like a bunch of other things. So like, the Big Bad Wolf gets referenced a million times, or it's obviously riffing on the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where we have like, dolls that come to life and murder people or whatever, so it's just like, or the movie opens with the sound of a mourning dove, mourning because of death, even though it's a sign of peace. It was just like, we get it, bro. Like, you got an English major, but to what end? You know what I mean? So I just felt like the bad symbolism irritated me. And then finally, I felt like it was a movie that had all vibes, no substance. And the vibes were great, but I have to tell you, as soon as it was over, I was like, I want to go rewatch 7. I want to watch Silence of the Lambs.
Sure.
And rewatching them, I was like, oh, it's a steep drop off. I will say that, like, I missed this genre. It reignites it in a way that it was like, oh yeah, but it's it, like so much contemporary filmmaking, like you were saying, is a pastiche and a nod to things that we remember. And in that way, it's all nostalgia and empty calories. And so for me, this was a 4.
Whoa.
Wow. I'm glad you had the guts.
Yeah, me too.
I really wanted to like this movie. I
did
really
too.
wanted to like it.
I did too.
And rewatching it, I was like, oh, it's better. But also if I turn my brain off. So
Yeah. As a little epilogue, can I feel like I tried to nail the twist at about minute 25, and it would have been an ending that I think
Ooh, I love this.
would have been kind of cool.
Oh, how could we have rewritten the movie? Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I thought we were being set up with like Lee is like sort of like the unknowing actor the whole time. I thought we were being and while that is an unforgivable cliche, I do think that sometimes it is done well, even in the modern day.
Yes.
And I thought that it would have been cool if the accomplice had actually been Lee being manipulated by the devil, using her psychic ability to make the fathers kill the families.
I 100% agree. And there was a moment where I thought that too. And is it when she's sitting in Carter? Is it Carter? What's his name?
Carter is the
Carter's
boss. Yeah.
Office. Is that when? I'm trying to think of when that moment like strikes where I was like, is it her? But that I think would have been. It would have been more interesting.
It would have made a lot more sense too how Longlegs ended up in her apartment and left her a note on which the ink was still wet. You know, when she like if it had actually been her writing it for herself, and you know all of these silly things that have already been done many, many times.
And it would have spoke to the ambivalence around Bad Daddy, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, or you know, like her kind of being manipulated and being directly a part of it, then it would implicate her in a different way. Whereas she's like utterly passive here, and it's just discovering what was inside her house the whole time, which to your point is like, oh, within the nuclear family lurks the darkness, not externally, yes, but if she was actually complicit in some way, that would be, I don't know, that could be really
been neat.
Interesting.
Could have been good if handled well.
If handled well.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it would have been.
I mean, it would have given her agency.
I mean, I've been thinking about this question, and I don't know who I'm going to go with, but I feel like we got to do who's the hottest.
Who's the hottest?
This is the easiest.
Easy.
Super easy.
You guys
It's like
go.
a piece of cake.
I know what we're all going to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agent Carter.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on.
Yeah, he's hot AF.
Agent Carter is
his
the hottest.
voice.
You're right.
Oh, you know, he could be Bad Daddy all day long.
Yeah.
Did he get hotter once he kills his family? Maybe.
Like a little bit. The part where he's like, you'll be in the kitchen.
You'll be in there.
I'll come out. I'll come back
I was
out.
like, ooh, stab me.
Oh my fucking god.
He is hot.
He is
Honorable
hot.
mention, though, Mama Camera with that knife. Come
Yes.
on. Come on.
Okay, you're right. I forgot.
Right, come on.
Okay. She
No,
was.
Carter's still,
That's
for
true.
me.
And
And
For me,
she's
still
showing off
Carter.
that cesarean scar. I was like, work it, girl.
And she's, but she's like,
Oh yeah,
all the way up.
the
Yeah,
sex,
man.
the sex. No one can see what's happening, but Harry's reenacting it.
I'm reenacting
Go watch
it.
the movie so you know what's happening.
Exactly.
I'm gonna say Carter's wife. Well, she's pretty hot.
She is pretty hot.
Yeah.
She is pretty
Yeah.
hot.
Not the Stepford moment.
No.
Before that,
Are we there?
I think we're there, but we do need one more thing.
Yeah.
We need a sound bite.
We do.
From Teagan.
Teagan.
Anything. You've been
Give us
preparing. I know.
a soundbite.
Hail Satan.